Here we have another atheist going at it again with the exact same arguments about God, his existence, why there is evil instead of good, while atheism doesn't provide any standard for what is good, what is right. It's literally all just subjective morality. So why is it wrong that kids die in Gaza? Right? What is your answer for the people that are bombing them? Are they evil? I shouldn't say they're evil because it's subjective. They think they're good. You think they're evil. No one's really right. Right? There is no heaven. There is no hell. So both of these people, the bomber and the bombed, end up in the same place. Wow. So this really gives us good incentives on earth to be like, you know what? Let's not do evil because there's no judgment at the end of the day. So let's all just steal, murder, do everything to get rich, right? As fast as we can, blow up as many children as we have to, and things are going to be amazing for us, right? In theism, well, you're going to have the consequences for those actions, and those kids are going to be with God in perfect peace forever. So even though it's hard to wrestle with these questions here on earth, the theism, the theist, the Christian still has a better, in my opinion, better explanation, right? For all of this stuff. Better hope for all of this stuff. And not just a blind hope, not just blind faith, but faith built on evidence, on reasons for believing, right? Why does God allow evil? I don't know exactly why he'll allow evil in every single situation. I think you'd have to be God to know that. Same way he asked Job, do you know everything? Right? Like, do you know how this works? You know this works? Do you know how everything is gonna work together? It's like the butterfly effect, right? In a crude way. You don't know how every outcome is gonna affect another outcome that's gonna affect this outcome to bring the ultimate outcome. And we just don't know that. But can we have the trust and faith that we put it in God's hands and we know He's just to do right? And I would say yes, even though it's changing the question, right? And another thing, why is God, when He comes on earth, why is He on a cross? Right? Why is He carrying a cross? Why is He suffering? Right? So at least He can relate to that injustice, being an innocent man dying on a crucifix for everybody else's sins. So he's not a God that's far away from pain and suffering on a human level. I think that's the beginning of an answer to that question.
You don't believe in God, but you seem like such a good person.
You don't have to believe in God to be a quote unquote good person in human standpoint. So the believer she's talking about seems like a baby Christian, seems like a baby believer that just started believing. It doesn't seem like she's talking to no heavy hitters, but let's make a straw man so we can demolish it and then we can be super smart and smug and mock it instead of actually dealing with the actual arguments and making a steel man to argue against. Let's make a straw man to just punch out real easy.
You worship Satan?
You can worship yourself, technically, and Satan's still happy about it. Satan doesn't care if you worship him outright like a Satanist, right? Not like the atheistic Satanist, because there's different flavors, but he just cares about getting you away from Jesus. If he gets you away from Jesus and gets you away from relationship with the true God, then he's won. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what you do with your time, right? He doesn't care if you're Muslim, if you're Mormon, if you're Jehovah Witness. He doesn't care of anything. He only cares if you got the truth, because then you're dangerous, because then you're not in his kingdom. Because when you're in hell, there's going to be a lot of different, Muslims and this and that. There's going to be everybody, right? I mean, Muhammad there, Joseph Smith. I don't know if any of these people are actually there, but it's an example of saying it's not like you have to be a strict Satanist worshiping Satan to end up in hell, to end up with separation from God. All you need to do is not have Jesus, and there's no relationship with God.
You're mad at God.
It does say there's going to be either weeping or gnashing of teeth in hell. So either you're going to be sad and like, man, 5 more minutes, please let me go back there, let me change this and change that. No, I'm so sorry. Like weeping, that's what I imagine. Or gnashing of teeth, like cursing God, swearing at God, I hate you, all this other stuff. Those are the two reactions. So This lady, she's pretty informed about some things.
You don't believe in God? How? Look at nature!
Well, that is good too, because it's like me coming to you and I'm like, hey, look at this watch I just found in the woods, and there was a blind watchmaker that didn't even exist, and it was really nobody. Nobody made this watch, and here's this watch, and no one would believe that this watch is like made from nothing and by nothing with no mind that was thinking about making a watch. But you'll look at the universe and look at creation and look at nature and say, yeah, we have oxygen here so we can breathe. Yeah, we have gravity. Yeah, we have all these things. Yeah, the sun's in a perfect distance from us to, just make us warm enough to tan me, but not enough to burn me, and not far enough away so I am frozen. There's all these things that we know about science and we know about the world that we just say, man, all these things lead me to believe the intelligibility of the universe, right? The scientific revolution coming around in Christian Europe by Christians, right? Strong, strong evidences to believe in God. Because all the questions that a child would have, science can never answer. Where did we come from, right? What is the meaning of life? Where do we go after we die? Science can never answer those questions because you have to test something and retest it and have testability and predictability. How do you test something if somebody's dead? They're dead. But keep making caricatures and straw men so it's easy for you to, kind of feel comfortable and justified in your atheism.
You believe deep down, don't you? Come on. Come on.
It's not enough to believe, right? The demons believe that there's a God, that Jesus is Lord, but they don't follow him. They don't obey him, right? They don't fall into a right relationship. They defy him. They separate themselves from him. They want to be God. So then they're separate, but they still know, right? Just like in the New Testament, oh, we know who you are. You're Jesus, the Son of God. Please don't cast us out into the pit. Put us in those swine. Even they know they have to ask Jesus these things before they can happen. So they know Jesus is Lord, but they don't go and say, "Okay, guys, let's get into a good relationship with God again." No, they don't care. They don't want it. Right? So it's not enough to just have a mental ascension to believing there is a God, but it's, do you have a relationship with Jesus?
Not believing in God is a belief, so.
And that's true too. Atheism is a belief system, right? And then they say, no, it's not. And then you say, do you believe it? And they go, not in the same way you believe in your sky daddy, your invisible sky daddy. It's like, bro, you have faith. Why is faith such a dirty word? It's a common word, right? Same way you have faith in your wife, hopefully, that she's going to be faithful to you, even though, she could not, right? She could change in the future, right? But then you're like, you know what? I have faith in my wife because she's shown me the kind of person she is over time, and I trust her. I'll put my trust in her. You guys have a belief system and a faith.
Every creation has to have a creator. You say, who created God? Nobody.
Yes, you see creation. So when people say, hey, is God created? No, God is not created. Well, who created God? We just said God isn't created. Well, why does the universe need a creation? Because the universe was created at a time and place, the Big Bang, all this stuff that you say happened, okay, but the universe isn't eternal then, because then we wouldn't ask, hey, who made the universe? Oh, the universe is eternal. It's always been there. Okay, good enough. But no, the universe has a beginning. You
don't believe in God, but what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong?
Yeah, we pray for her and people like her, because imagine you are wrong and you do end up separated from God for all of eternity, and the only thing you can remember and replay in your mind is all those times and opportunities that you could have come to Christ, that you mocked it, that you just threw it away with the back of the hand, like, I know it's nothing. And imagine that's what you're thinking about, right? Imagine you're thinking about this video that you just made, the ending, right? What if you're wrong? And then you're there and you're like, dang it, I was wrong. And I made that video, but at least it got a lot of views and it helped X, Y, and Z. But what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but to lose his soul? Nothing. It's not something that you ever wish somebody to go to hell, somebody to ever be separated from God. God doesn't even want it, right? Hell was made for demons, right? It wasn't made for human beings. And God desires every man to be saved, but if you don't want a relationship with God, God isn't going to force you into that relation with him in eternity. God bless you, sister, and I hope you find Jesus.
Sometimes I forget that people are religious, and it just astounds me. Like right now, amongst me, there are people that believe that there is an invisible man, of which we have no evidence that he exists. He's invisible. I don't know where he lives. I think he lives in the sky.
It's always about straw men. They never want to deal with the actual arguments Christians have. It's always just caricatures and mockery of what they believe Christians believe. Any informed Christian doesn't think that God is a man, right? An invisible man in the sky, in the clouds, with a white beard and a white dress or something along those lines, right? God is immaterial, right? Spaceless, timeless, powerful, right? These are the qualities that he has. So even being a man, what does it mean to be a man, right? Does it mean you have male appendages and genitalia? Well, then no. God isn't that type of man like a human being is a man, right? He's a father, right? And then God became man, right? In Jesus Christ. But God is not, by nature, some type of physical, invisible man in the sky.
And he grants wishes for people, and he created the whole world in 7 days. And there are adults who are going around actually believing that. Like, that is just wild to me. Like, adults that file taxes.
Is it as wild as adults that go around the world, around life, thinking there is no real morality? Morality is just a human construct. So all these evil things are not really evil, even though they always talk about it and they have so much passion about evils that have happened in the name of religion. But you're like, you don't believe in evil. You don't believe in objective morality. You think it's all subjective. So what is subjective morality? Well, you like vanilla ice cream. I like chocolate ice cream. What's the best ice cream flavor? No one knows. It doesn't even make sense to ask that question. But if morality is actually set in stone, there's actually a moral lawgiver and we have to follow that, then you can make such claims about evil and atrocities and murders and how all this stuff is bad and why would God let it happen. But if you don't have that, then you just saying it, it's just your own opinion. It doesn't matter. It's as if I ask everybody's opinion about what their favorite ice cream is. It doesn't tell me what the best ice cream flavor is. It doesn't mean what law we have to make for ice creams and which ones should be banned and which grape flavor should be banned and which Epstein flavor should be banned. It's all just your own flavor and enjoy your flavor, bro. But you don't really believe that. But you act as if, I'm an atheist and I'm so logical. But the universe came from nothing. When I die, I'm going to nothing. Nothing made everything. Somehow, non-life became life. How? We don't know. But that's God of the gaps. But it's not. Because Y is the longest word in the human genome, our DNA. Messages and intelligible languages don't come from a non-mind. It comes from a mind. But you don't care. Because one day, Daddy Science is going to answer every single question. Because science is the only way to prove everything, but that statement can't be proved scientifically.
And vote, just going around going, la la la, there's an invisible man that's in the sky and he grants me wishes sometimes. And he sent his son to Earth, and he's an invisible man in the sky too. Like, how can these people claim to be, like, logical or, like, that is just so far beyond the realms of what...
I know, and you're so logical. Can you prove logically or scientifically that there are minds outside of your mind? Can you prove induction? Can you prove that the laws of mathematics are going to work in the next 5 minutes? You can't prove any of these things, but you believe them on faith. But our faith is not a faith. Our belief is not a belief.
Realms of what is possible in our physical reality, that it just really surprises me that people believe in it at all. Like, if someone came up to me for the first time and introduced Christianity to me, let's say I'd never heard of it before, my first question would be like, where's your evidence? Okay, there's an invisible man. He loves me. All right, but where is he? Well, I don't know. Well, then I don't believe in it then. I only believe in things that make sense within our physical universe. So yeah.
So you ask a Christian, where's God, right? And then you say, well, he's like immaterial, right? He's spirit. So he's not in a place because a place does not define him, right? He's not like in like California, right? He's not limited by space, right? That's what omnipresence means. He's everywhere, right? But like there is a heaven, that's what you mean by in the sky, but heaven is just where God's presence is, but God's presence is also in Christians. So it's like a question that's too big for your mind or my mind too, right? Because if I ask you, hey, can you prove to me, and explain to me exactly what consciousness is, and you'd be like, sorry, I can't do that. Okay, let me give you an easier question. Can you tell me what energy is? And they say, oh yeah, we can measure it and we can predict. No, 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 that's not the question I asked you. What is energy? And then you can't give me an answer to this. But then you can ask the Christian, explain to me how God became a man. And then if you don't have an exact formulation, then they're going to say, you see, I can't believe. But at the same time, they believe in all of these things that they cannot prove or understand completely, like consciousness. Where does it come from? What is it? How do we get it? Da, 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 da. Don't know. But you still believe it. You see how you have two different standards? And you know what they say? Well, Christianity says there's miracles, and that needs an extra level of evidence. So just changing the weights and measures.
It's just sometimes I have to remind myself of that. And what I find funny too is that, Christians will say, oh, of course, well, Christianity is such an obvious religion to believe in. Well, the same reasons why I don't believe in your religion is the same reasons you don't believe in every other religion out there. Like if I said to a Christian, why don't you believe in Allah? A lot of the things they would say is probably the same reasons why I don't believe in Christianity. But it is just something that pops in my head every now and again.
The old Christians are atheists for 99% except one. I'm just 1% more than the Christian. Not really, because believing in God and not believing in God are two big chasms to be separated from. I can disagree with the Muslim because of, Quranic verses and the whole Quranic dilemma and why the Quran says, the Bible is good, but then if you believe the Bible, like that's a whole nother topic. But it's not equivalent to say, oh, since we just don't believe in any God and you believe in just one, you're basically atheist too. And that's kind of funny because Christians were the first atheists in a sense, because in ancient world nobody was an atheist. But in Rome you had multiple gods for everything. And Christians just said there's only one God. So that was very atheistic in a sense of them to only believe in one God compared to thousands and hundreds of thousands of gods and demigods.
Now and again, I have a bit of a chuckle, like, what a crazy thing.
It's not a chuckle because you just make up a straw man. Christians believe for no reasons. Well, we do believe in for reasons, but you don't like those reasons. You don't support those reasons. And then I'll ask you questions about the universe and this and that and things that you do believe in. And then you can't give me good reasons or a full explanation of things, but you still believe it, right? It's like when you go sit down in a chair or lay down in your bed. How do you know your bed isn't going to collapse? But you lay in your bed anyways because you've laid in your bed so many times. There's so many different things like that we just have faith in, that we have trust in, right? You have faith that you're going to wake up tomorrow morning. You have faith that the sun's going to rise again, right? It's not verifiable scientific proof that the sun will come up tomorrow. Something could happen.
If you're someone who thinks that a valid argument for God is gesturing vaguely at everything in the universe and saying, so you just think this all came from nothing, please watch this video. I am begging you to watch this. The first issue with this argument is that it is a God of the gaps argument. It is a gap in human knowledge. We do not know for sure what kicked off the whole entire universe. However, historically speaking, putting God into a gap where humans lacked knowledge has been proven to not be very good for your God.
We don't vaguely point at nature and say this is why we believe in God, but it's because of the things that we do understand about nature that points us towards God, right? The intelligibility of the world, why we can do science, why we can do math that fits so perfectly on the reality that we have here. Why is that happening, right? The fine tuning, right? Why is everything fine tuned for us? Why did the scientific revolution happen? And why is there such a deep connection between the rise of modern science and a biblical worldview in the 16th and 17th century? Why did Isaac Newton not have the same problem with science and God that the new atheists do? Isaac Newton, in his mathematical book, the Principitica Mathematica, Latin. Why was the beginning of it saying, this is meant for any thinking person, that they should believe in God, that they can believe in God? This is like evidence, right? Look at the universe that we have here. Look at how intelligible it is. Look at our minds, that God has created us in such a way that we can figure out his thoughts after him. But, if atheism is true, why didn't it take off in atheist society somewhere else, right? The modern scientific revolution. Why didn't it happen? Because why would you think that somehow your monkey brain that came from lower life forms would be able to understand all the laws and the secrets of the universe when your mind was never created to do that? Your mind was created to find fruit and find some cheeks. That's all your mind was created for, reproduce and eat. But somehow we're able to travel the cosmos, look through telescope, and do all these things. But why do you trust your mind to do it? Your mind was never created to do it. These are the reasons why Christians all throughout history have believed and put trust in God instead of this God of the gaps you're talking about that we don't believe in. That's a straw man.
Because as human knowledge expands, the gaps where you've been putting your God are getting smaller and smaller. The next thing people will say is the universe is so complex and so well defined, it has to have a creator. And I have a couple issues with that. My first issue is with the whole well-defined thing. People love to say that, and I did a whole video about this, but we don't know that our universe is well-defined. Like, it's well-defined for us, sure, but we don't have another universe to compare it to. We don't have another universe that we can look at and say, hey, the strong force and the weak force are like different over there. And maybe if we did have that other universe, we'd see that one is better.
So atheism of the gaps, huh? This is what you're relying on? Atheism of the gaps? One day our atheism will get there? No, it won't. Because it's like me and you looking at an aquarium or looking at a goldfish tank and being like, man, somehow this goldfish tank is perfectly suited for these goldfish. And I'm just like, yeah, it had to be that way or they wouldn't be there. It's like, yeah, but what made it like that? Nothing made it like that. It was randomly just happened to be like that. I'm like, wow, can you imagine those chances? And it's just like 10 things you need for a fish aquarium. But for the universe, it's like a billion things that have to go right. And you're like, yeah, that all happened by chance. No, I don't have as much faith as you to believe that.
Better, but we don't. There's no way to compare this to another universe and say that this one is well defined or better than something else. And saying that the universe is so complex that it has to have a creator creates an infinite regression within itself. Because if something is complex, it must be created. So then, if your God created the complex universe, your God must be more complex than the universe itself. Therefore, something more complex than your God must have created your God, and something more complex than that must have created that, and it goes on forever. You see,
That's the infinite regress. Because just because it's complex, you don't say that's the reason why it's created. You yourself said at the beginning of the universe. Well, we know there's a beginning. We know things are expanding. If you reverse it, then it goes back to a point. It goes back to a starting point. That's why we say the universe is created. It needs to have a creator. It began. It needs to have a beginner. But when we talk about God, do we say God was created at this point? Or do we say God's eternal? Do we believe this? Is this what the Bible says? Is this what has to kind of be a fact? That there has to be a first mover? That things can't just infinitely regress because it would never get to a new point? There needs to be a starting point logically, and that starting point is God. So God is not a thing that is created. He's a person. God is eternal. So no, the question of is God created, who created God is not even a question that makes sense. Because then you're assuming in that question that it's created. But if you were to say, no, God's not a created being, then to ask who created him doesn't make sense.
The universe is practically infinite for all intents and purposes, and you're telling me that your God kicked off all of this, every single bit of it, just so it can have a personal connection with 8 billion meat sacks with electricity running through them on a rock?
What Satan would say, human beings, just meat sacks. What does the Bible say? It says we're the image of God. God can create that very easily. Created everything very easily. But what's harder? What did he have to go to the cross for? A relationship. Because people with free will, with decisions to choose him or not choose him, to sin against him, that takes more effort. That's harder to do than creating a whole universe from nothing. God did that easy. So yes, it doesn't tell us anything about them. But yeah, I love it too, because every time these people talk about God, it's always the Christian God. They're never talking about Allah. They're never talking about like Joseph Smith. They're never talking about like some other religious God. It's always God of the Bible. It's always Christianity for whatever reason. Even that is like a proof to me, because like it's always the most hated one, the one that's like most persecuted in the world, the one that's like the worst one you can be. Like, don't be that one. You can be Muslim, and we're gonna be like, yeah, bro, Allah, yeah. But Christian, oh my gosh, these people believe in like a venomous, vitriol, hatred, dislike of the God of the Bible. Because, yeah, God did all of this creation for a relationship with us. Yes.
Surrounding a distant, burning ball of gas in a galaxy that's a part of a.
You think it's randomly plotted there, but you don't have the mind or the capacity to understand why it was put there. What would happen if it was put at the center? What would happen if it was put here, over here, over here? You don't know, like, hey, God picked the perfect place for us because we're still here, right? I know the center of the universe is like the most chaotic place where the craziest things are happening. We couldn't survive there. Something would go wrong. So, God, just like Earth, right? Oxygen, all the perfect things that we need here, I believe we have the perfect place that God knew this is where we're going to be in the universe.
Care about the people on that rock? Sorry, that just doesn't really add up to me. So get a better argument. And in
Yeah,
God created the whole entire universe just to care about the people on that rock? Sorry, that just doesn't really add up to me. So get a better argument. And in the meantime, I'm going to be good without God. Have a fantastic day.
because for you, humans don't really matter that much, but to God, humans matter a lot. Their eternal salvation matter a lot. And he'll create all of this just for us. The same way you can be a billionaire, have all the money in the world, and you'll buy your kid everything. You'll spoil your kid. You'll be like, here, I bought you an island, I bought you this, I bought you that. And then someone will come around and be like, why did you just buy that meat sack? Why'd you do all this stuff for that meat sack? Why'd you? And it's like, that's not a meat sack. That's my son. I love my son. And when you love someone, you can go above and beyond. So if you're the creator of everything and you can create everything from nothing just by the word of your mouth, it's not like God was there with a hammer and chisel, you know, like, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. Just come up with a better argument. No matter what, some people just, no matter what argument you give them, or no matter what evidence you give them, they don't want to believe. And these videos are not for those people. These videos are for the people that are kind of like, I don't know, I want to believe where the evidence will take me, and not say, no, I can't take that. I can't take that. Even though it's all evidence, well, I can't take that. The only evidence I can take, the only things that I can believe in are things that can be proven scientifically. Really? Can that statement be proven scientifically? Well, no, but exactly. That statement that science is the thing that has to prove everything cannot be proven by science. So it's a self refuting statement. But you're so logical and arrogant, making straw men and beating them up, that you think it's the truth. But I pray for these people that you wake up, because I don't want to see anybody separated from God for all of eternity. That's the worst thing that could ever happen to you, to a person. So let's keep praying for them.